Hi everyone, it's Allison here, also known as Lasan Faye, and I'm here to bring you another Zen Art Challenge video, this time for February 12th through February 18th. And just as a reminder, the Zen Art Challenge is hosted by Heather over at Mindful Creativity, and I will include a link to the Facebook group in the description below, as well as a link to all of the tangles that I do today. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, the first tangle today is called Loev, and it's by Ella Rieger and Isabella Rotensteiner. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna dive in, and you can follow along with the instructions along on the right-hand side. So, the first thing that they want us to do is draw this little compressed C shape. And then once we get that, come in and make a slightly smaller one that's inset and connects the ends. So, once we have all of that, kind of create like a top-like cone. So, you know, the old spinning tops. I used to play with them when I was a kid. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make mine a little curvy. And similarly, and just connect it at the tip there. Feel free to make it as curvy or as uncurvy as you want. And then once we have that, we kind of echo this curve going down. So. And so like these aren't going quite straight across. They do dip just slightly. And then how much spacing you want is a personal preference. So, and then from there, there's a couple of embellishments that you can do. And so I am just going to kind of fake shade the sides by going back in and doing these light little lines along each side. Creates a bit of a shadow effect and provides some dimension for the tangle. There's multiple suggestions on how to like really personalize it in the directions. So feel free to do whatever you wish. Okay, so this next tangle is again not named, but it's also from graphistica.com. So like a couple of the ones that we had last week. And the first step that you want to do is to come in and make a nice little zigzag. And then once you've done that, make one that mirrors it right below. And with this, I just eyeball it to try to keep the same distance going across. So that I get a nice clean image when I'm done. All right, so I've now done my outline, And now what we're going to do is alternate, starting at the top and come in and kind of divide it off. And then moving on to the next one. 1, 2, yeah, doing more than 2 is a little bit crowded for me. You can make the zigzag thicker in order to like really emphasize what's happening. Okay, so once that's done, the pattern seems to bolden some of the lines. And so what I'm going to do in order to really get that in is use a thicker pen tip and just come in and really beef those up. This is a more subtle detail that will be more dramatic if you use varying pen widths or even use a thicker zigzag, but pretty happy with that. And then as a final detail, the instructions kind of draw like little flower petals that come out of these diagonals. So I'm just gonna follow along with that, and it's just a little teardrop shape. So you come up, you loop, you go back in. Come up, loop, go back in. And voila! Just like that, we're all finished with this tangle. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, the next tangle is called Zello, and it's by Annie Oken. And so I'm just gonna dive right on in. So again, this almost has a zigzag-like start, except it kind of stops at more of a lightning bolt break. So I'm just gonna come in, down, back out, and then echoing that. As a bit of advice, whenever I go into internal corners, I try to equally space away from both sides and then draw out from there. And then with this one, you cap off the ends. So once you have your first one in place, you then try to repeat the shape, except you come in a little bit at each repetition. You can mostly just eyeball this. There's no need for it to be precise. This is, after all, just doodling. And actually, I think it looks a little more interesting if it's not as precise. And you can carry it as far down as you want to go. And I think I'm going to stop there with this one. And then once you've done one of them, you kind of build off of that one and put in another little lightning bolt. So, one, two. And you kind of, again, just build off of what you have. Since the end is hidden on that side, I am just going to work with that. And again, you can carry this as far down as you would like to go. And add in as many layers as you want to. So one of the recommendations in the instructions is to use shading or as an alternative, and what I will probably do at a later point in time is use color to like really emphasize where each one's beginning, where it's ending. Because while all the ones you've seen from me so far have been done in black and white, occasionally I do add color to my tangles. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave this one here. Alright, this next tangle also does not have a known name, and so I am just going to also tell you it's from Graphistica, and I will do my best to link it below. You'll also note I skipped upper box here. That's slightly outside of the frame, and that's just because actually when I drew this setup I made a mistake and I made these 6x7 versus my usual 6x6 square, and I felt that this particular tangle would benefit from having a longer frame. So that being said, I'm going to dive on in. So the first thing you're going to want to do is give yourself some sweeping lines that are going to act as your beginning guidelines. And once you have those, you frame them up a little bit by adding ones on both sides. If it's an interior line, and just on the inside if it's an exterior guideline. This is just to give it some dimension. And once we have all of those, we are going to go in and do this little alternating loop zigzag. So the way I recommend doing this is pick one side to start at, and if you're left-handed, I'd say go ahead and start at the right side and work your way back across. I'm not left-handed, so you're gonna see me do this the right-handed way. And you kind of loop inward, come up, create a small tiny loop as you reach the top, loop downward, create a small tiny loop, up, down, up, down, up. And just continue that over the next several pieces. Just so you know, the way I do these loops, I kind of model it after the loops that I put on my cursive L's, or how I used to do it on my cursive 2's. So if you just want some advice on how the hand structure works, that's how I'm doing it. All right, so that's all the loops in place. So once we have that, I'm going to use a slightly thicker pen here because the decoration that's recommended is to come in and do little polka dots along our initial guiding lines. And to get an idea for placement, about where you've been putting the curls around it works out really well. Okay, so that's all of those in place. As a final detail, what the original artist did was create a cone going around that came up, and as it unfurled, it hit everything, curled out, down, and around. And this actually helps give this one an interior as you come back up and have it join. Then the other thing that happened is starting from about where the two lines meet, the artist kind of drew these little U shapes that go up and around, and following this out to the end. So once that's in place, the other thing that happened is this swept inward, this connected there, 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 and as a final detail, come up and swirl the ends here. And also kind of dividing, it follows kind of a bit of a tangent line to that initial part of the arc in order to get this shape. Alright, so then probably to get rid of some of the messier join points, one of the things the artist did was to darken and bolden this outside line. And as it twisted towards the center, have it get a little more bold. And also the artist boldened up this line. And added smaller little humps inside of the U shapes that were done earlier. Alright, and that's how the end result looks. I'm actually really happy with that. So, I might use this in the future in some of my own art. All right, this next tangle is called Trio, and it's by Hanny Waldberger. And I'm just gonna dive right on in. So this, again, it's a little bit of a spiral with kind of a teardrop on the end. One of the ways I recommend to do this is to start with the teardrop. Do that small loop and then come out. And then so in the next step, the advice from the instructions is to start again inside and sweep out and around. And again, sweep out a part of the curve. And because we've already done 2 of the lines, let's do a 3rd line and make it a trio. Voila, so that's our first part of the trio. The next part is kind of overlapping with this. And a way to do that is you pick an endpoint that starts the teardrop right on the edge, create the curve that goes out, around, downward. Again, starting with the teardrop, creating a slightly larger curve that follows it previously, and then a 3rd one. All right, so that is the second part of our trio. And for the last part of our trio, we do another little teardrop. Comes in and breaks up the center part into 2 pieces. And from there, you kind of follow the curves that are present. So the curve that's present in the teardrop is the one that I'm going to follow on the inside, or on the left-hand side here. It might be the right-hand side for you if you're doing this in mirror image. And following this part of the curve on the right-hand side. So that forms the main part of our trio. And you can shade this in however you want in order to add some dimension to it, or color it however you want. For right now, I'm just going to leave it as is and move on to the next tangle for today. Okay, this next tangle is called Side Eye, and it's by Yuru Chen. This artist is also the one who did the SXC curve from last time. So I am going to start. So the way you begin this one is you find the center of the area you're working with and you draw a circle around it. This is where I can take advantage of the dot grid that I have. And then you want to divide the remaining area into fourths. So once we have that, we can add in some more details. So one of the things is we're going to make 2 of these boxes that are diagonally across from each other as a checkerboard, and the other 2 are going to be curved lines. So let's start with the checkerboard. All right, and then once you have your checkerboard, you can go in and do your curves. For me, the curves kind of start and end with where the checkerboard lines are. All right, so you know what, I am going to make this a little more interesting and do some color. So, and actually make checkerboards. So that is it for me with side eye. I just wanted to add a little bit of detail to make it look a little more interesting. So I colored in my checkerboard, and then I added a bit of a fake shadow on the edges going into the curve, just to give it a little bit more of a dimension. Overall, I really like it and really enjoy this. So yeah. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so this next tangle is called Aquafleur, and it's by Maria Thomas. And I will include a link to the source below. So let's just go ahead and dive on in. So the first thing you want to do is create a little blob that's curvy. All right, so we've now made our little blob, and then from that little blob you pick a starting point down at the bottom and draw lines out that come all the way out and then hook back towards the original blob. So we kind of do these in pairs, and pairing them together using a little line. So now I've made all the pairs that I'm going to use. And the next part in the directions calls for filling them in. So I'm gonna go and do that. just like that, I am done with this tangle. I could take some time to fill it in a little bit more, add some dots. Actually, you know what? I think I am going to do that. Just because I can. Really, you could finish decorating this any way that you wanted to. This is how I've decided to finish it off. And overall, I'm really happy with the image. All right, so that's it for the tangles this week. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more of these videos, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I am doing my best to release these once a week. I am really enjoying doing this, and I hope you guys are enjoying seeing these videos. So thank you again so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful week. Bye.